Hi there, this is John from RevSoft, and this presentation is an example of how to define focal points for a scheduled job in REV Scheduler version 10.3. This applies to all platforms. Now the aim here is to allow the job details for a scheduled job with 5 scripts _ 3 to be sent to focal points, which will allow it to be managed from any of the focal points. We're going to use multiple focal points here. So the job with 5 scripts _ 3 is on a Windows server called Isono. In RevView on Isono, there are 4 focal points defined for REV Scheduler, 3 IBM iSeries and 1 AIX server. Okay, so let's take a look at the RevView definitions on the Windows server Isono. Here we can see all the network definitions. So let's drill down to scheduler only. Now you can see the focal points are defined by a check or a tick there in the FP column for focal points. Okay, so what are the others if they're not focal points? Well, if we check the one here, what we have here is a definition of a path to a server called Autono, which is Windows. It's going to go direct, but we're not going to send any execution history there. So that is really a path, whereas if we check for the focal points, what we'll see here is it will have checked that we're going to send the history, and then there's the option to send the log data as well. So what we have then is looking at all the focal points on Isono. We have 4 focal points set up, but in scheduling we have 11 connections. So 11 connections, 7 are paths, 4 are focal points, 2 are on hold, which means they're not being used currently. Okay, now we've seen the RevView connections, and we've got paths, and we've got 4 focal points. How does that tie in with the job event definition? Okay, let's have a look. The job event definition here, the one we're looking at, is job with 5 scripts _ 3. We've actually filtered our view here so we can just see these ones, and what you'll see over on the right here is we've got the server rule name, and it's got *all. So if we drill into the job event definition itself, where it's got the server rule section right here with a drop down list box, all means it's going to be sent to all those RevView definition connections that were focal points. None means it won't be sent to any, and we have server rules in there as well. Now the RevView server rules are covered in a separate presentation if you want to see what that is, because that allows you to build rules of a mechanism to select different servers based on different rule criteria. But at the moment, this job with 5 scripts _ 3 is going to be sent to all the focal point connections for Isono. So let's get into that and see what that looks like. Okay, that's a definition part. Let's see what it looks like in action. Launching the enterprise operations, which allows us to see all the jobs registered in the database when we point to a server. What we see is the jobs with 5 scripts _ 3 on the iSeries focal points and the IBM AIX focal point. So what we can do is I can force this job to run from here on the local server. I'm going to tell it to run all the scripts. There's no dependencies to update on that. Now let's jump down here and tile it. Now this guy should then go to green, to white, to yellow. Green is submitted, white is in process, yellow is completed normally. I'm hoping it will all go in that fashion. The other white one there is a multi-run job from the Windows server Isono that is executing, and we can see it updating on each of the focal points as well. So not just the job we're currently looking at, but there's a multi-run job running as well. So when this one that's scheduled to run at 7:15 completes on Isono, the status will change there and reflect the completion status of the job. It's gone to yellow there, it's gone to yellow on iSeries focal point, iSeries focal point, iSeries focal point, and AIX focal point there. So let's pick on one of the focal points here and look and see where it was force run from. It was force run from the local server, and here are the scripts that it was going to execute. So to prove the theory, let's force run it from a focal point. I'm going to force run it this time from the focal point. It will give me a list of the scripts and it will ask me if I'd like to run those scripts as well. Let's only do every even number one and let's run it. Now RevView is sending that from that IBM iSeries server back to the Windows server, and the Windows server will then launch the job. So even though I've done it from here, it will get sent back to the requester, which is the host. It's gone to submitted now, submitted here. It will then click to in process, and these guys I would expect to go to green to white to yellow as well. So we've done it from the IBM iSeries back to the Windows one. So what we're going to do is we're just going to let that complete, and then I will check it from one of these ones. The process ID of the job is 5096. Let's make sure that's correct. Yes, 5096. Let's check the process IDs of the scripts it executed. The bypass ones are in blue to let you know it was bypassed. What we can do is we can check the script process IDs of the individual scripts to make sure it's all good. 3120 and 5324, yes, all good. And then even from one of the focal points here, we can check and see how it was force ran, things like that. Let's pick on one of the other ones, which is another IBM iSeries. I can check on it here. It was run from Lab 01, and what happened then was it was submitted with those scripts to execute. So we've done it from one server to another. Our slowest server overall is probably the AIX one using MySQL. Let's force run it from here as well, just to see how long it takes. All the IBM I's have DB2, so I'd expect them to be a bit faster. So let's skip the first two and run the last three. Again, let's tile it so we can see what's happening. So we've done a request from the AIX server. RevView is sending it back to the Windows server. The Windows server receives the communication and processes it, and then we should go green, white, yellow. We've already gone white very quickly there, white here as well, and the other three will have the data communicated to them via RevView as well, because they're all external servers and not sharing the database. Again, if you're doing this on Windows and Linux and you share the database, the data stays local. It doesn't need to communicate it, so it does it in a much faster fashion. Again, process ID 5208. We'll just wait for the AIX server to finish, or we'll just check the number there, the process ID 5208, and let's go back to the host server itself, and let's just see what happened with the force job. It came from Titania, which is the AIX, and it asked us to just run the last three scripts. So what we've done here is we have networked a job in the REV scheduler definitions. We've then seen how we can manage it from any of the focal points. So in this example, we have one host server and 4 focal points. No external servers or scheduling servers. This is all running on these existing servers. So again, this is how RevView will operate in that environment and allow you to have as many focal views as you want. Again, if you look at the single additional server solution, there is one place you can see the focal point. In this example here, we've got 4 focal points for a job there. So what we're doing now is we've completed this demonstration on how to define focal points for a job. If you have any questions, please email us at product_info@revsoft.com, and thank you very much for your time.